I thought my first night shift at the hospital would be quiet. Just me, empty halls, and the hum of machines. But when the radio called for help from a room that doesn't exist, everything changed. The lights flickered, the air froze, and I heard someone whisper my name from inside the dark. Since then, I'm no longer sure who made it out alive. Me, or the one in room 313.
Greetings, every shadow hides a story. Welcome. Under the bed.
It happened at Northfield City Hospital, the old red brick complex on Maple Street that the city kept half alive while the new wing was still unfinished. It was raining and cold, a November night, just past 11:20 p.m. I was 27, my first solo night shift as a junior doctor. The parking lot was almost empty. My badge stuck to my coat. My stethoscope felt heavier than it should, and the wind pushed at the revolving doors as if it wanted in more than any patient did. Inside, the corridors smelled like disinfectant over damp plaster. A single strip of lights hummed above the admitting desk. The nurse on duty, Alice, signed the handover without looking up much. She had the tired eyes of someone who knew the building better than the city engineers, who kept promising to fix it. "Your mic," she said. "ER and observation on 1 and 2. Pediatrics is closed at night. 3rd floor is blocked for renovation. If you hear anything weird on the radio, it's just interference from the old system. Do not go upstairs." "How weird?" I asked. "Calls from rooms that aren't in service," she said, and pressed a radio into my hand. "Stay on 1 and 2. Call security if you need an escort." The first hours bled by in routine. An old man with chest pain who turned out to be heartburn, a teenager with a sprained wrist, a woman whose blood sugar had crashed. I liked the rhythm of it. Hands, questions, reassurance. Each case solved or passed on. Midnight crept up without drama. At 12:07 the radio crackled, loud enough to make me glance around, as if someone else might be holding one too. The voice was flat, as if read from a card. "Room 313. Doctor to room 313. I looked at Alice. She kept her eyes on her chart. "There is no 313, I said. "Renovation noise," she answered. "Ignore it." I tried. I checked the duty board. 1st floor, ER, imaging, observation. 2nd, step down, the few rooms still in use. 3rd, blank. No beds listed, no nurse assignment, no supply keys signed out. Still, the radio repeated the call every few minutes, the same cadence each time, as if someone had taught a machine how to soundboard. At 12:23, I took the service elevator to test a theory. The button for 3 was dead. Not stuck, just dead. No light when pressed. The doors shut and opened again without moving. I stepped back into the corridor and felt the building's old breath coming from the stairwell door at the end. The sign on the door said no access. A chain looped through the handles with a padlock that looked official. It also looked old. The wall around the hinges showed gouges where someone had once tried to pry it. The radio hissed again. "Doctor to room 313. I went back to the desk. "Do we have a bolt cutter?" I said, trying to make it a joke. Alice didn't smile. "Do not go upstairs, Mike. There's no power. The floor is sealed. If maintenance hears you, you'll write a report until morning." "How does a sealed floor make radio calls?" I said. She shrugged. "This building makes noises. You'll get used to them." I didn't feel like getting used to anything. I told myself I just wanted to rule out a false alarm that could be tied to the fire panel. I told myself I would go up, look, and come back. The padlock had slack. The chain gave enough to crack the door open. Cold air leaked down like cellar's leak. My phone's flashlight made a dull white tunnel up the steps, showing dust stirred by my breath. On the landing to 3, a plastic sign lay face down. I nudged it with my shoe and flipped it. The letters were faded but legible. East Wing. Rooms 301 to 320. A strip of hazard tape fluttered where someone had tried to seal the corridor and stopped caring. The overhead lights were dead, but the exit sign glowed a tired green at the far end. I told myself I would walk to the nurse's station and see a dark desk. That was all. My footsteps made that grainy sound sneakers make on old wax. Doors lined the left wall, their narrow windows black. Dust turned in the halo of my light like snow that refused to fall. Somewhere deeper, something metallic ticked and paused and ticked again. The station was as I imagined, a horseshoe of laminate, a computer with its screen hooded in plastic, a stack of clipboards under a film of grit. I wiped one with my sleeve and smudged my name across it without meaning to. Then I saw the narrow shelf of patient charts, their tabs faded yellow. I pulled the nearest one out. The cover was stamped with the hospital logo that had been retired years ago. Someone had written in careful block letters, "Patient, unknown male. Attending, Dr. Michael Hensley." For a second I thought I was reading someone else's story. Then the name fizzed in my stomach. Michael was mine in official documents, Hensley mine in full on my badge. I put the chart back and pulled another. Same stamp, same neat letters. Attending, Dr. Michael Hensley. I stood very still. The radio, which had been quiet long enough for me to notice the quiet, woke again in my pocket, the sound unnaturally close to my ear in the dead space. Doctor to room 313. This time the call did not repeat. It waited, as if holding its breath with me. I took the corridor left, counting doors even though the numbers were already there. 309, 311. The next door had no light above it, but its number plate was clean where a hand had touched it more than once. 313. The door was almost closed. The rubber stop at the bottom kept it from sealing. My phone light found the metal edge. The paint flaked away from the handle. The scrape marks where it had been opened and shut over years of use the floor supposedly did not have. I pressed my palm against the door. It was colder than the air. From inside, a call bell chimed. Not through the radio. From the wall. A real bell, soft and exact, as if a thumb had pressed a rubber button with just enough pressure to ask and not to beg. I pushed the door. It moved an inch, then two, then enough for my shoulder to slip through. My light swept over a bed with its rails up, a monitor dark but plugged in, a curtain half drawn around a shape that could have been equipment and could have been a person lying very still. On the bedside table, under a skin of dust disturbed by a recent finger, lay a chart with my name on the corner. Attending, Dr. Michael Hensley. The bell chimed again. The room held its breath. I heard my own, loud in the mask, and answered without meaning to, the way you answer when someone says your name in a crowd. "Hello," I said. "I'm Dr. Hensley." "Who called?" The light from my phone trembled across the tiles. I stood at the edge of room 313, waiting for something to move behind the curtain. The call bell had gone silent, but the air felt charged, thick as if a storm had settled inside the walls. My name still lay on that patient chart, the paper curled and yellow. I turned to leave, then heard footsteps on the floor above me. The sound shouldn't exist. This was the top floor. I forced myself out of the room and down the hallway. The radio was dead now. No signal, no static. Only my shoes scraping and the faint creak of ceiling panels. The exit sign at the stairwell blinked once and went black. I told myself it was power fluctuation. This building was ancient. But deep down, I knew I had crossed into the part no one wanted to remember. When I reached the stairs, a draft blew through, strong enough to swing the chain I'd left loose on the door. It clinked softly, like a warning bell. As I started down, my phone screen froze. White static, then a face for half a second. Pale, eyes open, my own face. I dropped it, the clatter echoing forever. When I picked it up, the screen was black again. Back on the second floor, everything looked normal. The lights worked, the monitors beeped. Alice sat at the desk writing notes, calm as before. "You went upstairs, didn't you?" she said without looking up. I hesitated. There was a call. From 313. She set down her pen. "You weren't supposed to answer it." "Why? What is that floor?" Her eyes flicked toward the elevator, then back to me. "Go home, Mike. Go now. I'll mark you for the shift. Forget about that room." I should have listened, but I couldn't stop thinking about the chart. My name written in old ink. I checked my badge, same spelling. It made no sense. I opened the hospital database on the staff computer. It was slow, the kind of system built decades ago. I typed Hensley Michael. The screen loaded a record dated 2014. Resident physician, deceased. I felt my throat close. The report said, died on duty during electrical fire. 3rd floor east wing, 0:47 a.m. The photograph attached was blurred, but I recognized the code. The same initials embroidered on the chest. The clock on the wall showed 0:21. Behind me, the intercom clicked. A voice, calm and dry, announced, "Code blue, room 313. Alice stood up, so suddenly her chair fell. "Don't answer that, Mike." I stared at the radio on the desk. The voice repeated the call, softer this time, almost pleading. "Doctor to room 313. I grabbed my coat and ran toward the stairwell. The corridor stretched longer than before. Every step echoed twice, once real, once late, as if something followed. The padlock on the stair door was missing. The door hung open, the darkness inside breathing cold against my face. The lights above flickered once, painting the number 3 faintly on the wall before it vanished. I climbed, faster than before, heart hammering. On the landing, water dripped from somewhere above, puddling around my shoes. The smell was different, burnt metal and antiseptic. The hallway waited exactly as I'd left it, except now the door of room 313 stood wide open, lights spilling out across the dust. A monitor beeped inside, slow and steady. I stepped closer. On the bed lay a body under a sheet, the shape unmistakable. My name tag glinted on the chest pocket of the white coat draped over the chair beside it. The radio in my hand whispered one last time. Dr. Hensley, time of death, 047. The heart monitor's slow beeping filled the room, echoing off the cracked tiles and metal rails of the old hospital bed. My pulse matched its rhythm, heavy and uneven. I stood in the doorway of room 313, frozen, watching the faint glow from the machines dance across the walls. There shouldn't have been any power here. This floor had been sealed for years. The body on the bed didn't move. For a moment, I thought it was just an empty shell used for training or storage. But then the blanket rose and fell, shallow and steady. Someone was breathing under there. I took a step closer, my shoes brushing through a thin layer of dust. The sound felt too loud, too alive for this place. The air smelled of burnt wires and disinfectant that had long since lost its strength. A curtain hung halfway across the room, yellowed and stiff. I reached for it slowly, my hand trembling. As I pulled it aside, the monitor gave a sharp spike. My stomach turned cold. A man lay on the bed. Tubes ran from his arms to silent machines. His skin looked waxy, drained of color. His eyes were closed, but the face was mine. The same scar above the eyebrow, the same line at the corner of the mouth. It was like looking at a reflection left behind after the mirror had been smashed. I stumbled backward, hitting the cabinet behind me. My badge fell to the floor with a metallic click. The monitor's beeping grew faster. I pressed my hand against the cold metal of the bed, searching for warmth, for any sign this wasn't happening. "Hello," I whispered. "Can you hear me?" The eyes opened. They didn't roll or twitch. They just opened, calmly, as if they'd been waiting. The pupils were wide, drowning in black. My throat tightened, words turning to air. I tried to step back, but my legs wouldn't move. The mouth of the man on the bed moved, slow and stiff, like a body remembering how to speak. "You're late." The voice wasn't coming from his throat. It was deeper, layered, echoing from somewhere inside the room itself. I looked around, but the walls seemed to breathe. The lights flickered, and for a moment I saw shapes pressed behind the paint. Faces, outlines of hands, fading as soon as the glow returned. I grabbed my badge and ran. Out the door, down the corridor, past the half-lit signs. The hallway stretched endlessly, the numbers repeating, 309, 311, 313, then again, 309. I turned a corner and came face to face with Alice. She looked different, her uniform stained, her hair wet as if she had been standing in rain. Her eyes reflected the hallway lights in a way that made them seem hollow. "You saw him," she said quietly. "Didn't you?" "What was that?" My voice cracked. "That man, it was me. Why does he look like me?" "You weren't supposed to see him." She looked over her shoulder toward the dark stairwell. "He doesn't like when you see him." "Who?" "The one who answers the calls." Before I could speak again, the intercom above us came to life, its speaker hissing with static. "Code Blue," it said softly. "Room 313. Alice grabbed my arm. "Don't go back there." But the voice repeated the call, louder this time, pulling at me like gravity. I shook free of her and ran down the corridor again, even though every part of me wanted to stop. The room waited exactly as before. The bed was empty now. The machine still hummed. The curtain swayed slowly, as if someone had just passed through it. On the table, the chart had been replaced by a fresh one, white paper, clean ink. Patient, unknown male. Attending, Dr. Michael Hensley. Status, time of death, 047. I checked my watch. 046. The air shifted behind me. I turned and saw a figure standing near the doorway. Tall, wearing my coat, my stethoscope. His face was hidden in shadow. "Who are you?" I said. He stepped closer. The lights flickered again, revealing a pale reflection of myself. Same build, same tired eyes, but older. His voice came calm and cold. "You're repeating it." "Repeating what?" "The night. It never ends right, does it?" I backed away until my legs hit the bed frame. The other me stopped beside the chart, looked down at it, and smiled faintly. "You died here," he said. "You've just forgotten." I shook my head. "No, that's impossible." "Then why are you still working the same shift?" He tilted his head. "Why do you always come back at midnight?" The monitor's tone flattened into a single, piercing note. The lights went out completely. The only sound was the hum of the machines winding down. I ran, pushing through the hallway until I found the stairwell. The door that had been opened now slammed shut. I threw my weight against it, but it wouldn't budge. Through the small window in the door, I saw a movement. Figures in hospital coats, faces blurred like fogged glass. They were wheeling a bed down the hall, the same corridor I had just left. On the bed, under a white sheet, I saw a hand slip out from under the blanket. My hand. I screamed until my throat hurt, pounding on the door. The radio in my pocket came alive again. "Dr. Hensley," it said in that same dull voice. "Patient in room 313 has expired. Time, 0:47. The voice paused, then added softly, "Prepare for next admission." The lights came back on. The door swung open. The hallway was clean again, bright, quiet, and empty. I stood alone, gasping for air, the radio still warm in my hand. My watch ticked forward to 0:48. I looked down and saw the edge of a chart lying near my feet. My name written neatly across the top. The ink was still wet. The morning never came. At least, not for me. The windows of the east wing stayed black no matter how long I waited. My body felt heavy, slow, as if every breath I took belonged to someone else. The clock above the nurse's station had stopped at 0:46. I didn't notice at first. My hands shook too much. I sat in the staff lounge, staring at my reflection in the vending machine's glass. The fluorescent light flickered across my face, draining the color out of it until I almost didn't recognize myself. The radio on the table kept breathing static, like it was trying to form words. The hospital was silent otherwise. No patients, no carts rolling down the hall, no nurses laughing quietly at their stations. Just the hum of old electricity and the sound of my pulse behind my ears. I needed to leave. I needed air, sunlight, proof that the world still existed outside. But every corridor led me back to the same intersection, the one with the cracked sign pointing to East Wing, rooms 301 to 320. I tried the stairs, the elevator, even the fire exit. Each time, when the door opened, I stood once again in front of room 313. The handle was cold, the kind of cold that burns your skin when you touch it too long. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then, faintly, the steady rhythm of a heart monitor. I had left that machine off. I was sure of it. "Mike!" The voice came from behind me. I turned. Alice stood halfway down the corridor, holding a small flashlight. Her eyes looked softer now, almost human again. She didn't move closer. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Neither should you," I answered. "Tell me the truth, Alice. What is this place?" She hesitated, then walked forward until the light touched her face. For the first time I noticed the deep scar across her cheek. It looked old, burned over, and healed wrong. "You already know," she said. "You've known for a long time." "I'm alive," I said, forcing the words out. "I came here for my first shift. I parked my car outside, I checked in." "No one checked in tonight," she said. "No one has for 10 years. The radio on my belt crackled again. "Dr. Hensley," it whispered. "Prepare for the next admission." I looked at her. "Why does it keep saying that?" She took another step closer. "Because you never leave. None of us do." Something in her eyes shifted then, sorrow, pity, maybe even fear. "Every year, on this night, the hospital wakes up for a few hours. You come back. You walk the halls. You find yourself again. And at 0:47, it starts over." My heart clenched. "You're lying. Look around you," she said softly. The hallway lights dimmed. The paint peeled itself back from the walls. Smoke stains appeared on the ceiling like old wounds reopening. The smell of burning filled my throat. I heard the sirens outside, faint but rising, just like the night of the fire described in the report. Alice's flashlight flickered. "It was an electrical fault," she said. You were on duty when the generator blew. You tried to help the patients on this floor. None of you made it. I shook my head. No, I would remember. You do, she said. Every time. The radio screamed. I dropped it, the static cutting into my ears. When I looked up again, Alice was gone. Only her flashlight lay rolling across the floor, its beam trembling toward the door of room 313. I walked toward it slowly. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, louder than the one coming from inside. The door was half open. The monitor beeped steadily now, the sound pulling me in. Inside, the bed was occupied again. The sheet was clean, white, untouched. Beside it stood a clipboard. I picked it up with shaking hands. Patient, Dr. Michael Hensley. Cause of death, smoke inhalation. Time, 0:47 a.m. I stared at the line until the ink blurred. The heart monitor flatlined. The lights began to die one by one, starting from the far end of the hall, moving toward me like a wave of darkness. The sound of fire returned, faint at first, then louder, closer. I turned to run, but the doorway had vanished. The walls around me flickered, catching and dying again, as if the building was breathing through the flames. Smoke filled the room. I covered my mouth and stumbled toward where the window should have been, but there was only more hallway. The same one. The same cracked tiles. The same sign. Somewhere inside the smoke, a voice whispered my name. Not Alice this time. Deeper, familiar. My own. You can't save them, it said. You never did. Through the haze, I saw a figure walking toward me, wearing my coat, my stethoscope, my face. His eyes were black hollows. He stopped inches away and leaned in close. It's almost time, he said. 0:47. The building shuddered. The world turned white with light and heat. When I opened my eyes again, everything was quiet. The smoke was gone. The hallway was clean, bright, new. The monitors hummed softly. The clocks ticked again. The hospital looked alive. Footsteps echoed behind me. Another young doctor, carrying a fresh badge, glancing nervously around the corridor. Alice stood at the desk, smiling the same tired smile she'd given me on my first night. ER and observation on 1 and 2, she told him. If you hear any calls from the 3rd floor, don't answer. It's just interference. The doctor nodded, unaware. I watched from the end of the hallway, invisible now, my shadow faint against the white walls. The clock above the station ticked forward, 1 minute at a time, until it stopped again. 0:47. And somewhere deep in the east wing, a radio whispered, "Doctor to room 313. The alarm from the nurse's station was still echoing somewhere behind me when the lights went out for the last time. The corridor turned into a tunnel of shadow, pulsing faintly with the red glow of the emergency exit signs. I tried to find my way back toward the stairwell, but the air felt thick, hot, and the smell of burning plastic stung my throat. The hospital was waking up again, the same way it had 10 years ago. I stumbled into the staff room and pressed my palms to the table to steady myself. My reflection looked back at me from the glass of a broken cabinet, pale, exhausted, and flickering, like a TV losing signal. My badge swung from my neck, tapping softly against my chest. The name on it blurred and changed with each sway, Dr. M. Hensley, then unknown. The radio on the counter crackled to life again. Dr. Hensley. The voice said calmly, almost kindly, "Room 313. I picked it up and shouted into it. "Stop it. There's no one there. It's over." Static answered, followed by my own voice, repeating the words back to me a few seconds late. I ran into the hallway. The building shifted again, walls bending, lights stuttering on and off. I could hear gurney wheels turning somewhere above me, the faint squeal of old brakes. I turned the corner, and there she was, Alice, standing in front of the door to room 313, her flashlight pointing at the floor. "You came back," she said quietly. "I never left," I whispered. "Tell me the truth this time. Why does it keep happening?" Alice's expression softened, but there was a kind of resignation in her eyes. "Because it has to," she said, "until you understand what happened." Smoke began to creep from under the door of room 313, the same gray curls that had filled this floor years ago. She stepped aside, leaving the doorway open for me. "Go in, Mike. It's the only way to stop it." I hesitated, but the sound behind the door grew louder. Monitors beeping, a heart rate flatlining, someone choking for air. I pushed through. Inside, The air was almost solid with heat and smoke. The walls flickered between present and past. The same corridor, but burning, screaming, collapsing. The bed in the center of the room was surrounded by light, so bright it looked unreal. I shielded my eyes and saw myself lying there again, this time gasping for breath. My coat was burned, my hands blackened with soot. I was shouting for help. And then I remembered. The explosion in the generator room. The fire spreading through the oxygen lines. The patients trapped on the third floor. I had gone back in to save one last man. I made it to room 313, but the ceiling came down before I could get him out. The fire alarm froze at 047, and everything went black. That was the night I died. I stared at the version of myself still lying there, the life fading out of his chest. The monitor went silent. The line turned flat. The smell of smoke vanished. The air cooled. Alice stepped into the doorway behind me, her voice trembling now. "You see it, don't you?" I nodded. "It's real." She smiled faintly. "Now you can rest." The other me on the bed exhaled one last time. The machines shut down. I felt a strange pull inside my chest, like my heartbeat was sinking with the silence. I reached out and touched the body's hand. It was warm for just a moment, then faded into nothing. The lights flickered once more, and suddenly the room was clean again. New paint, polished floor, sunlight spilling through the blinds. The fire damage was gone. The hospital was alive. I walked out into the corridor. It looked just as it had the night I first arrived. Quiet, sterile, humming with the sound of distant machines. A young doctor walked past me, his ID badge gleaming under the lights. He couldn't see me. I recognized the nervous way he carried his stethoscope, the uncertain way he smiled when Alice greeted him at the desk. "Welcome to Northfield City Hospital," she said, the same words she'd once said to me. "If you hear anything strange on the radio, just ignore it." He nodded, unaware. I turned back toward the east wing. The door to room 313 was sealed now, a new lock fixed over the handle. The plaque beside it read storage, authorized personnel only. I felt calm for the first time in years. The hallway clock ticked forward to 047, but this time, it didn't stop. It moved on to 048, 049, 050. The world didn't loop again. I walked toward the main doors. Sunlight was waiting outside, soft and warm, cutting through the hospital's dusty glass. For the first time, I could feel it. Behind me, the radio in the nurse's station crackled one last time. "Code cleared," it said. "Room 313, discharged." I smiled, let the doors open, and stepped into the morning. The air outside smelled like rain and cold metal. The city was waking up. Somewhere far behind me, Northfield City Hospital settled into silence. The east wing locked, its ghosts finally gone. And that was the end of my first and last night shift.